Okay, so for this deep dive, you handed us Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
A classic, right?
Family of classic.
And it seems like everyone's got an opinion on it.
Yeah, for sure.
What we found really interesting diving into this one
Uh,
is how Kiyosaki uses his personal story
right.
to make some pretty bold claims about money.
Absolutely.
You ready to unpack some of this?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right. So he calls them his poor dad,
Right.
his actual father,
Yeah.
and his rich dad,
Yeah.
who was his best friend's father.
Yeah.
And both dads had completely opposite views on money.
Totally.
Even though Kiyosaki's biological father was the one with all the fancy degrees.
It's a great setup, right?
Yeah.
Because it forces you as the reader
Right.
and us as we're digging into this
Totally.
to question our assumptions.
Yes.
Like his poor dad would say things like, go to school, get good grades, get a safe, secure job.
Yeah.
Which sounds pretty familiar.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to...
Totally. It's what most of us are raised to believe.
Right.
But then his rich dad challenges that whole idea.
He does.
He says things like,
Uh-huh.
the poor and the middle class work for money.
Yep.
The rich have money work for them.
It's a good one.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where the book really starts to get interesting.
Okay.
It's not just about earning more money.
Yeah.
It's about changing your entire mindset about wealth.
Uh-huh.
It makes you wonder how much of what we believe about money is actually holding us back.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get into some of the actual financial lessons from Rich Dad.
Okay.
One of the biggest ones is this idea of assets versus liabilities.
Right.
And he defines them in such a simple way.
He does. He says an asset puts money in your pocket.
Yeah.
A liability takes money out of your pocket. I mean,
Right.
it sounds almost too basic.
Yeah.
But when you start to look at your finances through that lens,
Uh-huh.
it can be really eye-opening.
Right. And thinking about how he uses visual diagrams to explain this concept
Yes.
is great because it really drives the point home. I mean,
Yeah.
even something like your house,
Right.
which most people would consider an asset,
Right.
can actually be a liability, according to Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
If you're constantly pouring money into it for the mortgage,
Yeah.
repairs, and taxes.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of how he challenges conventional thinking.
Uh-huh.
It makes you question every purchase and every financial decision.
Yeah.
Like, is this putting money in my pocket or taking it out?
Right.
I think for a lot of people,
Yeah.
that's a really powerful question to start asking themselves.
It is. And this whole idea of assets versus liabilities ties into another one of his big concepts,
Okay.
the rat race.
The rat race, yeah.
He describes it as this endless cycle of working for money,
Yeah.
paying taxes,
Right.
and then spending whatever's left over,
Yeah.
which often leaves people in debt and feeling stuck.
And he contrasts that
Yeah.
with the idea of building an asset column that generates income.
Right.
That could be through real estate, owning a business,
Yeah.
investing in the stock market,
Right.
anything that's consistently putting money back into your pocket.
So instead of just trading your time for money in a job,
Right.
you're focused on building something that works for you even when you're not working.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people hit a mental roadblock
Yeah.
because it requires a real shift in perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about earning more.
Right.
It's about thinking differently about how you earn.
I mean, his rich dad even suggests finding a second job
Right.
that will teach you a skill related to building your asset column
Yeah.
rather than just working for a higher paycheck,
Interesting.
which sounds counterintuitive,
Yeah,
but it really underscores his point about focusing on long-term wealth building,
it does.
not just short-term income.
It does. Right. And he's really challenging the traditional idea of job security.
Right.
Because even if you have a stable job,
Uh-huh.
if you're stuck in that rat race,
Yeah.
you're not truly financially secure.
Right.
It makes you think,
Yeah.
what skills am I building?
Yeah.
What assets am I creating?
He really drives that point home with a story from his own life.
Yeah.
He talks about buying this rundown house for $45,000
Okay.
and flipping it a year later for $95,000.
Wow.
And he didn't start with a ton of money,
Yeah.
but he saw an opportunity and
Yeah.
he had the knowledge and the guts to go for it.
It's a great example of how he puts his principles into action.
Yes.
And he emphasizes that he wasn't afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
In fact, he embraces failure as part of the learning process.
Uh-huh.
which can be a really powerful mindset shift
Right.
for people who are afraid to make financial moves.
It's interesting because even though his rich dad is all about building wealth through business and investing, he's also a big believer in the power of learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He doesn't just mean formal education, though.
Right.
He's talking about constantly seeking knowledge,
Yeah.
whether that's through reading books, attending seminars, taking courses,
Yeah.
or even just learning from other people's experiences.
Right.
He's got this quote where he says,
Yeah.
"The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth."
So he's really advocating for being a lifelong learner,
He is.
especially when it comes to finance and investing.
Yeah.
He even talks about taking courses that seemed way over his head at the time, but he knew that the more he learned,
Yeah.
the more opportunities would open up for him.
And he really puts his money where his mouth is, so to speak.
Right.
I mean, he talks about buying a $1.2 million apartment building with no money down,
Wow.
which sounds impossible.
Yeah.
But he managed to do it through creative financing and a deep understanding of real estate.
It's pretty inspiring, right?
It is.
Especially for someone like our listener who's clearly interested in learning and growing.
Yeah.
It makes you think, if he can do it,
Right.
maybe I can too.
Maybe I can too.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder. And that story about the apartment building is a perfect example of what Kiyosaki calls inventing money.
Which sounds kind of magical.
It does.
Like, are we talking about alchemy here?
Yeah.
Turning lead into gold?
Well, not quite. But he is challenging us to think beyond just earning money.
Right.
And to see money as something that can be created through smart financial decisions and a bit of creativity.
So instead of waiting for a raise or promotion,
Right.
he's saying we need to find ways to generate wealth outside of our regular jobs.
Exactly. He's really pushing the idea of using your financial intelligence to create opportunities that might not be obvious to the average person.
Right.
Like in that apartment building story. He didn't have the cash on hand,
Right.
but he understood how to structure the deal
Yeah.
and leverage debt to his advantage.
Okay.
It's like he's playing a different game entirely.
It's like he's saying, don't just work for money.
Right.
Make money work for you.
Exactly.
But he also acknowledges that there's a big psychological barrier for a lot of people when it comes to money.
There is.
He talks a lot about fear holding people back.
He does, and he uses this really interesting analogy to illustrate this point.
Okay.
He compares fear to the tar baby from the Brer Rabbit story.
Oh, yeah?
Remember how Brer Rabbit gets stuck in the tar the more he struggles?
I remember that story. It's like a sticky trap.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki says that fear can be like that,
Right.
especially when it comes to money.
Yeah.
It can paralyze us and prevent us from taking the risks necessary to build wealth.
Right.
We get so caught up in the fear of losing
Yeah.
that we miss out on the potential to win.
So how do we get unstuck from the tar baby?
Good question.
How do we break free from that fear?
Well, Kiyosaki suggests that the first step is to acknowledge the fear.
Oh, okay.
He says, face your fears and doubts and new worlds will open up to you.
So it's not about ignoring the fear or pretending it's not there.
Right.
It's about confronting it head on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He talks about his own fear of public speaking and how he forced himself to overcome it
Right.
because he knew it was essential for his success.
Yeah.
He encourages readers to step outside of their comfort zones and take calculated risks. He even says the greatest losses of all are those from missed opportunities.
That's a good point. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the fear of making a mistake or losing money.
Yeah.
But what about the potential rewards we're missing out on by playing it safe all the time?
It's true.
Right?
And Kiyosaki is really big on learning from your mistakes. He sees failure as an essential part of the process. He has this great quote where he says,
Okay.
I have never met a rich person who has never lost money. But I have met a lot of poor people who have never lost a dime investing that out.
So it's like he's saying the only way to avoid losing money is to avoid investing altogether.
Right.
Which obviously isn't a path to wealth.
Exactly. He's encouraging us to embrace the possibility of failure as part of the learning process. He even uses the story of Remember the Alamo to illustrate this point.
I love that story. It's not just about remembering a historical event.
Right.
It's about reframing failure as a learning opportunity
Exactly.
and using it as fuel to move forward.
Right. He talks about how Texans don't bury their failures.
Yeah.
They turn them into rallying cries.
I love that.
It's about having that resilience and that grit to keep going even when things don't go your way.
And that ties into his emphasis on financial education.
It does.
He's really critical of the traditional education system for not teaching kids about money.
Yeah, he calls it financial illiteracy.
Mm-hmm.
And he argues that it's one of the biggest reasons why so many people struggle financially.
Yeah.
He thinks schools focus too much on preparing students for jobs and not enough on teaching them how to manage their money and build wealth.
Which is kind of ironic, right?
It is.
Because as he points out, most people end up working for someone else anyway.
It is ironic, and it's a pretty bold statement to make.
Yeah.
But it does make you question the value of traditional education,
Right.
especially when it comes to money.
So he's basically saying we need to take control of our own financial education.
Exactly. He encourages readers to seek out information from sources outside of the traditional classroom, whether that's through books, seminars, mentors, or even just by observing how wealthy people operate.
And he stresses the importance of finding mentors who have already achieved what you want to achieve.
He does.
He says find someone who has done what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Take them to lunch and ask them for tips and tricks of the trade.
It's like he's saying, don't reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Learn from those who have already paved the way.
Yeah.
And he's a big believer in paying your advisors well,
Okay.
because he sees good advice as an investment in your future.
He even has this provocative statement where he says,
Does he?
if you think I'm the problem, then you have to change me.
Uh-huh.
If you realize that you're the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
It's a powerful message about taking responsibility for own financial well-being
Right.
and not blaming others for our circumstances.
And he doesn't shy away from controversial topics either.
He doesn't.
He has a whole section on taxes and how the rich have always found ways to minimize their tax burden.
He does, yeah. He even goes so far as to call Robin Hood a crook,
Right.
which is definitely a hot take.
But his point is that the rich understand how to use the system to their advantage,
Right.
while the poor and middle class often end up paying more than their fair share.
He's not advocating for tax evasion or anything illegal,
No.
but he is encouraging readers to learn about the tax code and find ways to legally reduce their tax liability.
Mm-hmm.
He sees tax savings as a significant source of wealth accumulation.
It's interesting because even though he's talking about some pretty complex financial strategies,
Yeah.
he also emphasizes the importance of simple things like overcoming laziness.
He does, and he makes this interesting point about how busy people are often the laziest
Right.
because they use busyness as an excuse to avoid confronting their financial problems.
He tells this story about a businessman who worked tirelessly to provide for his family, but neglected his relationships and ended up losing both his wife and his job.
Wow.
It's a cautionary tale about the importance of balance and making time for what truly matters.
It is, and it gets to the heart of Kiyosaki's definition of wealth,
Okay.
which is about more than just money.
Right.
It's about having the time and freedom to do what you want when you want. He calls it financial freedom,
Right.
and he argues that it's the ultimate goal.
Which ties into his principle of paying yourself first.
Absolutely. This is one of his core tenets, and it's so simple yet so powerful.
Right.
He's saying before you pay your bills, before you buy groceries,
Mm-hmm.
set aside a portion of your income for savings and investments.
It's like he's saying treat your future self like a creditor.
Exactly. And he argues that this creates a positive feedback loop
Yeah.
where the more you save and invest,
Right.
the more money you'll have working for you. It's about shifting your mindset from scarcity to abundance
Right.
and believing that you deserve to be wealthy.
What he also warns against arrogance.
It does.
He says, what I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money.
Right.
Every time I have been arrogant, I have lost money.
It's a reminder
Right.
to stay humble
Yeah.
and to always be open to learning new things, especially in the world of finance where things are constantly changing.
He also talks about the importance of giving back both through tithing and charitable giving.
He does. And he believes that giving creates a sense of abundance and that it often comes back to you in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
He has this simple but profound saying, if you want something, you first need to give.
It's like he's saying that generosity is a key ingredient in their recipe for wealth.
Exactly. And he doesn't just mean giving money.
Right.
It's about being generous with your time, your knowledge, and your resources.
Yeah.
He sees giving as an essential part of living a fulfilling life.
And he really emphasizes the importance of having a strong why for wanting to achieve financial freedom.
He does. He says the question is why?
Right.
And it's a powerful question because it forces you to think about your motivations and your goals.
Uh-huh.
Why do you want to be wealthy?
Yeah.
What will you do with your money once you have it?
He believes that having a clear purpose will help you stay focused and motivated
It will.
when the going gets tough.
Absolutely. It's
Wow.
about connecting your financial goals to something bigger than yourself,
Right.
something that truly inspires you. And he ties that into the importance of finding your passion.
He believes you're more likely to succeed in business if you're passionate about what you're doing.
He even says I'd rather play golf,
Right.
which is kind of funny coming from a guy who's written multiple best-selling books on finance.
It is funny, but it also underscores his point that life is too short to spend it doing something you hate.
Exactly.
He encourages readers to find a way to align their work with their passions
Yeah.
and to make money doing something they enjoy.
And he's a big believer in taking action. He says most people only talk and dream of getting rich.
Yeah.
You've done something.
It's a call to action, right?
It is.
He's saying knowledge is useless without action.
Uh-huh.
You have to be willing to put in the work and take the first step, even if it's a small one.
He reminds us that the journey to financial freedom is a marathon, not a sprint.
And he stresses the importance of having a positive mental attitude.
He believes our thoughts create our reality.
Right.
And he encourages readers to focus on their goals and to believe in themselves.
He even says, you're only poor if you give up.
Wow. The most important thing is that you did something.
Powerful.
It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to change our circumstances if we're willing to put in the effort.
Absolutely. And he encourages readers to find their unfair advantage.
What does he mean by that?
He's talking about identifying your unique skills and talents
Okay.
and using them to your advantage.
So it's not just about working hard. It's about working smart and leveraging your strengths.
Exactly. He gives this great example of how he partnered with someone who had complementary skills to create a successful business.
Right.
He says, I went to sales school. You have a master's degree. Put them together and you get a best-selling author and a best writing author.
It's a great example of how collaboration can lead to success.
And he emphasizes the importance of thinking outside the box and finding creative ways to use your skills and talents.
Right.
He believes that innovation is the key to wealth creation.
He also talks about the importance of having a long-term vision. He does. And he argues that short-term thinking can lead to financial ruin.
Right.
He's encouraging us to think about our financial goals in the context of our entire lives and to make decisions that will benefit us in the long run.
He even says a real investor makes money in an up market and a down market.
It's a good one.
It's a reminder that building wealth is a long-term game.
It is.
And that it's important to stay focused on your goals even when the market is volatile.
And of course, he talks about the importance of managing risk.
He does, and he acknowledges that it's impossible to eliminate risk entirely.
Right.
But he encourages readers to diversify their investments and to always have a plan for managing potential losses.
Right.
He has this great quote from Warren Buffett, risk comes from not knowing what you're doing.
That's a good one.
It's a powerful statement about the importance of education and knowledge when it comes to investing.
And he stresses the importance of building a strong team.
He does, and he argues that you can't achieve great things alone. He encourages readers to surround themselves with talented and supportive people who can help them achieve their goals.
He even says the problem with secure investments is that they are often sanitized. That is made so safe that the gains are less.
It's an interesting point. He's suggesting that sometimes you need to take on a bit of risk.
Sometimes you do.
In order to achieve significant returns.
And
he's a big believer in having systems in place for managing your finances, your businesses, and your life.
He is, and he uses McDonald's as an example.
Right.
Of a company that has highly efficient systems for producing and selling hamburgers.
Yeah.
He encourages readers to develop systems that can help them to achieve greater efficiency and productivity.
Right.
In all areas of their lives.
It's like he's saying, don't just work hard.
Right.
Work smart.
Exactly. And he talks about the importance of finding your financial freedom number.
What's that?
He defines it as the amount of passive income you need to cover your expenses.
So it's the amount of money you need to be making from your assets without having to work for it.
Exactly. He encourages readers to calculate their financial freedom number.
Okay.
And to create a plan for achieving it.
He also has this interesting way of defining wealth. He says, wealth is a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward. Or if I stopped working today, how long could I survive?
Interesting.
It's a thought-provoking way to look at wealth.
It is.
It's not just about how much money you have in the bank.
Yeah.
It's about how long you could sustain your lifestyle without having to earn any more money.
He's really challenging us to think differently about wealth.
Yeah.
And to focus on building long-term sustainable income streams.
And he doesn't forget about the importance of taking care of your health.
Right. He argues that your health is your most valuable asset. And he encourages readers to take care of their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
He has this great quote where he says, to develop into a whole human being, we need mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual education. It's true. It's a holistic approach to well-being, and it underscores his belief that true wealth is about living a balanced and fulfilling life.
And, of course, he reminds us to have fun along the way.
He even says, I'd rather play golf.
Right.
Which is a great reminder that life is too short to be miserable.
It is.
Even when you're working towards big goals.
Right.
He encourages readers to find ways to enjoy the journey to financial freedom and to make it an exciting and rewarding experience.
Absolutely. And he talks about the importance of leaving a legacy.
What does he mean by that?
He's talking about the impact you make on the world.
Okay.
And the difference you make in the lives of others.
Yeah.
He believes that true wealth is about more than just accumulating money.
Right.
It's about using your resources to make a positive contribution to society.
So it's about giving back and creating something that will outlive you.
Exactly. He encourages readers to think about how they can use their wealth to help others and to make the world a better place.
So what does all this mean for our listener who's diving into Rich Dad, Poor Dad for the first time?
It's a call to action. It's a challenge to question everything you've been taught about money and to take control of your financial future.
It's a roadmap to achieving financial freedom, but it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Right. It's a long-term journey that requires hard work, dedication, and a willingness to learn and grow.
It's about changing your mindset, developing your skills, and taking action.
It's about creating a life of abundance and purpose.
So are you ready to take the first step? I think one of the biggest takeaways from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that wealth is not just about how much money you have.
Right.
It's about how you think about money.
It is.
And how you use it to create the life you want.
Absolutely. It's about having a healthy relationship with money.
Right.
And understanding that it's a tool that can be used for good.
And it's about taking control of your financial education.
It is.
And being proactive about building your financial future.
Being proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about embracing the power of learning.
Yes.
And constantly seeking new knowledge and skills that can help you achieve your goals.
It's about surrounding yourself with the right people.
It is.
And building a strong team of advisors and mentors who can support you along the way.
And it's about having a clear vision for your future.
Right.
And taking consistent action to make that vision a reality.
So if you're ready to challenge your beliefs about money and take a bold step toward financial freedom, we highly recommend picking up Rich Dad, Poor Dad and diving deep into these concepts yourself.
I agree.
Who knows?
Good book.
It might just change your life.
It might.